Turning now to politics, despite mounting calls by fellow Democrats for her to resign, Senator Dianne Feinstein is vowing to return to her post in Washington, refusing to step down. And this comes despite being in California, recovering from the shingles since February and missing 62 of her 82 Senate votes this session. Joining us now to discuss Senator Feinstein's legacy and her potential replacements is Isaac Hale, Assistant Professor of Politics at Occidental College. Good morning, Professor.
Thank you for having me this morning, Giselle.
Happy to have you with all your expertise. So despite being the most senior member of the Senate at 89 years old and battling health issues, Senator Dianne Feinstein says she will not resign. However, she is giving up, as you know, her seat on the all-powerful Judiciary Committee, acknowledging that her absence is holding up President Biden's appointments of judges. Should she step down, and what do you think is behind her decision not to?
Yeah, well, I think there have been lots of calls, including from her California colleague, Congressman Ro Khanna, for her to step aside, although there have also been many Democratic Party leaders who say she shouldn't step down. But I think that the argument for her taking this step down is not only is she a lost vote for Democrats, but on the floor of the Senate, but also Californians deserve representation, particularly at a critical juncture as this, particularly with the confirmation of judges in the aftermath of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And a lot of people, there have been calls for her to step down since the Amy Coney Barrett hearings in 2020. And I think this is only escalating those calls.
Well, this is a bit tricky because the senator, as you know, has amassed such a magnificent legacy over the past 3 decades, champion of women's rights, the first woman to serve on the Senate Judiciary Committee, the first woman to chair the Senate and Rules and Administration Committee, the first on the chair to chair the Senate Intelligence Committee. I mean, we're talking about a legacy of firsts, right? And when it comes to breaking the glass ceilings for women. So talk to me about her legacy and, you know, why it's so hard for her perhaps to relinquish her power.
Yeah, she's historic for all of those reasons you mentioned. And she's had a very long career. She's been the senator representing California since 1992. Previously, she was mayor of San Francisco. And she's a bit of a political chameleon and a little bit of a holdover as well. Generally a liberal, perhaps best known for authoring the 1994 federal assault weapons ban, and also an outspoken advocate for women's rights and reproductive choice. But she's also frequently been an antagonist of progressives in the left. As mayor, she vetoed domestic partner legislation and fought efforts to remove the Confederate flag from in front of San Francisco City Hall. And as senator, she received a lot of criticism for opposition to the New Deal, outspoken support for the Senate filibuster, support for expansion of spying on U.S. citizens. And, you know, she's, as I mentioned, she's a kind of a holdover from another era in some ways. She's someone who's willing to update her positions to match the California electorate, be it on things like marijuana legalization or the death penalty. And as you say, she has a very long history in representing California for a long, long time.
And also, she's shepherded a giant California desert protection bill that established Death Valley, as you know, Joshua Tree and the Mojave National Preserve. Talk to us about her legacy as maybe the ultimate environmentalist.
Yeah, so not only has Dianne Feinstein consistently, been in support of environmental protections and environmental legislation, but she's also brought back substantial amounts of funding for the environment in California in particular, a legacy that her colleague, Senator Padilla, and I'm sure whoever replaces her in the United States Senate in 2024 will be looking to continue.
Right, and it will be up to the governor, as you know, to appoint an interim senator if she does decide actually to answer those calls and step down. Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, as you know, Barbara Lee. Who do you think is gaining the most traction, and who do you think makes the most sense for a changing California?
Well, one possibility, of course, is that if Dianne Feinstein resigns prior to her 2024 end of term, which is no sure thing. She has made no indication that she plans to resign, and as of now, has not said she will resign. But if she does resign, I think it's unlikely that Governor Newsom will pick one of the 3 high-profile Congress members currently seeking that seat. I think more likely he will seek someone to fill that seat for 2 years who doesn't have an intention of running in 2024. I think putting his thumb on the scales by picking one of these members could be potentially very risky for the governor who's trying to avoid making political enemies. Now, back in 2021, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, sorry for the interruption. I was just going to say that the governor, previously promised to appoint a black woman as senator.
Yes, he did.
So does that make Barbara Lee his most likely choice?
Of the three, absolutely. But there also is a really, really deep Democratic bench in California. There are lots of amazing, accomplished African American female politicians in California who could fill that role. There's Secretary of State Shirley Weber, who he previously raised to that position. There's Holly Mitchell on the LA Board of Supervisors. There's Representative Maxine Waters, currently serving in Southern California. So there's a deep, deep bench if he's looking for someone who's not going to be running in, or potentially not running in 2024 as well.
How interesting. Didn't even think of that. All right. Thank you so very much. Isaac Hale, Assistant Professor of Politics at Occidental College. I hope you'll come back. I enjoyed you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.